Keith Wilkowski is in the studio because we have bigger fish to fry.
Good morning, Fred.
Hi, Keith. It's nice to think about the national stage, but when you get right down to it, as we were just talking off air, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And so we need to think locally. We need to think Toledo. I don't care what's happening on the national scene right now. We're in desperate need of some jobs and population, right, and to move forward.
Right, and I agree with that. And so, and as I've said any number of times on this show and throughout this campaign, you know, we need to separate what's happening on the national scene from what we're trying to do here locally. And you know, Fred, as you said, we have over 25,000 people out of work in this city, and the city of Toledo has no plan for jobs. Now, and as I've also said many times, no, the government does not create jobs, but the government plays a strategic and important role in job creation. And we cannot simply contract out that responsibility to others. It's a responsibility of city government. That's why the first thing we need to do is have a plan that works with our other agencies and cooperates regionally. You know, I'm proud of the fact that I have had experience building coalitions with suburban communities to create jobs.
Yeah, that's your experience.
It is my experience.
Now, some of the candidates are saying that they wouldn't have an economic development director. I'm going to assume, because I think I've heard you say this, that you would have
That's
one.
correct, I would.
Have you given any thought yet to who you were looking at? Because obviously you know a lot of people, you've been around for a while, so there must be somebody that you might have in mind.
Well, actually, people have talked about this to me, and I say, listen, I don't think about other people getting jobs till I get mine.
Okay.
and I think that's really good advice. But I do have some very, very definite views about the type of person.
That's what I was going to ask you. Who are you looking for?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Who are you looking for?
I'm looking for someone from the business community who is an entrepreneurial approach to things, someone who's willing to shake things up and do things differently, someone who understands fundamentally that we have certain resources and tools in city government, we can use those, but ultimately, unless a business can make a profit where they're at, then they're not going to be there. And all of your other assistants,
nothing else matters. Would you agree that occasionally the best thing for government to do is to just get out of the way?
Sure.
Maybe they can help out. Maybe
Absolutely.
They should just step aside?
Absolutely. You cannot, you know, you have to understand what you can't do as well as what you can do, and you can't just will it to happen. I think sometimes we look at things, we can just will this to happen, and I think the Marina District may be an example of, you know, thinking that, boy, if we just have the right attitude and approach, we can make that happen. Well, there are business fundamentals that you have to pay attention to for those things to happen. And along those lines, Fred, one of the things I've continually said is that we have to make sure that we have a reasonable tax structure here, that we're not raising taxes. You know, we're in a very unusual environment right now. For a long time, I talked about a strategy to make sure that we can ultimately down the line lower taxes, and that's by keeping spending below the rate of inflation on a year-by-year basis. We didn't get into where we're at overnight. We won't get out of it overnight.
The way that you run your administration, the way that you deal with, say, city council, and the department heads, can we expect to hear stories from a Keith Wilkowski administration that the Wednesday meetings are nothing but shout fests and finger pointing and blame gaming?
No, not at all. In fact, I have a very different management style than the current mayor. You know, I believe in choosing good people and giving them the authority to run their departments, and then, you know, sort of allowing that to happen. Now, I want to know what's going on. I think you need to understand what's happening out there. One of the most important things that I'm going to be doing is talking to people on the front lines. You know, I was the law director in Toledo from 1990 1994, and we had, I don't know, maybe 20 lawyers at that time. For the first 2 weeks that I was there, I didn't hardly spend any time in my office. I was visiting in other offices. I was listening to what people had to say about how the department could be improved. And so that's the management style that I'll have. And I'll tell you two things on this. One, the city needs good management. I'm responsible for that, and I'll make sure it's there. But most importantly, our city needs good leadership, and that involves so much more than just, you know, managing this department or that. It's talking about the important issues of economic development, jobs, where we're going as a city, trying to be sort of the public face of the city and saying, hey, You know what? I think we have a future in manufacturing, in solar, and what I call advanced manufacturing. We have a future in construction, and in particular green-collar jobs, and making our homes and our businesses more energy efficient, that we can do things in transportation. And you don't get to do all of that as the mayor, but you do get to set an agenda and lead the area. And so that's where I see both management and leadership.
Do you see that as cheerleading? Because that's what we've heard a lot of, in the last couple of years. That he's a great cheerleader. He's very passionate about the city, but he lets his temper get in his way. So are you more of a manager or more of a cheerleader? Because we've already had the cheerleader style.
I would say I'm more of a leader, and I really would, because what we need to do is be able to go to these other agencies. You have to understand that you're not going to do it all by yourself, but you have to get agencies working together towards a common vision. So I think that the mayor has a responsibility to define that common vision. And it takes more than just saying, hey, everybody needs to be, work together. And I think that there are some hard policy choices that we're going to have to make. And one of them is going to be about not raising taxes in order to solve this budget deficit.
Now, one of the opponents in one of the forums the other day said that in his administration there will be no tax increase. Are you willing to make that promise? And are you willing to go a step further and say that you're actually going to look hard at spending cuts in certain departments?
Well, we're going to have spending cuts because our revenues, we've been living outside of our revenues for a while now. So we're going to need to have cuts in spending. I do make that promise because two things, Fred. Number one, a tax increase, all it will do is chase people out of this city.
Yeah.
And from personal experience, I have been here all of my life. And when I was, back in a high school and a kid, we had nearly 400,000 people here. Today we have somewhere around 300,000. We've lost a quarter of our population, and our problem isn't that our people don't pay enough taxes. The problem is we don't have enough people. So we've got to look at the big picture and understand that our ultimate goal is to have people and businesses in the city. If we have that going on, if we have, as I've said many times, commerce happening in the city of Toledo, the taxes will be there.
All right. Now, we're having a new arena opening up. Fifth Third Field still going strong. Of course, the museum and the zoo and all the lake and the river and all that stuff that people always sell as being advantages for the city.
Right.
Is that what you're going to use to attract people here, or are we going to get some jobs here to attract people?
Right. I think those amenities are very important for the quality of life in a city. But ultimately, why people move to a place is because, hey, I have a job. I have an opportunity to have a job. And over at the University of Toledo, at the photovoltaics lab, if you've been there, I know you've done a lot of tours lately, Fred. You need to get over there. And I'll tell you what, they're building a new 40,000 square foot addition over there that you'll have to tour as well. I talked to people who moved from Golden, Colorado to Toledo, Ohio, and why did they do that? Well, they probably didn't do it because of our weather, even though we've had some pleasant weather of late.
Golden.
But they moved here because they had the opportunity to work in an area that challenged them intellectually, that where they could use their talents. It's in the area of solar and photovoltaics. And so as we develop as centers of excellence in employment areas, that is what will attract people here. And then, of course, when you look at, for example, the museum itself. The museum itself didn't start here and attract the Libbies to come here.
Right.
No, the Libbies built a business that was extremely successful, and they were then able to engage in philanthropy in order to give us that museum.